We'll take that as a starter's bell, shall we? Okay, that works well. All right, everybody. Nice to see you all here. We have a very full room today, which is nice to see. So nice to see everybody here. In terms of apologies, I think we have apologies from clearly Chris, Ros, and Mayor Ros. Anybody else? Any other apologies I'm missing? And Sharon. Any other apologies? No? Brilliant. Okay. In which case, let me go on to item agenda number 2, which is simply some announcements. So I wanted just to update people about some of the activity since we last met, because on the 1st of March, confirmed in last week's budget, the Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove, announced that South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority would receive a level 4 devolution deal, and that follows a letter in support of further devolution that we sent as an MCA board and the paper that we heard at last month's board. So this has clearly been a piece of work which has taken a number of months in negotiation, conversation with government, and certainly in South Yorkshire. The level 4 offer will bring increased financial flexibility for us here in South Yorkshire, with what I describe as a mini single pot covering transport and covering regeneration funding. And our officers are now talking to civil servants in Westminster and elsewhere to understand how that is going to be operationalised and put in place. And at the same time, that new deal brings the promise of additional partnerships with teams across Whitehall, the departments and agencies in government, and our officers are going to be working over the coming months to develop thematic plans that we can take forward with government. I would want to say, though, that clearly, whilst the level 4 devolution deal is a good deal and we're pleased to have made that progress, we will keep on trying to make progress about further and faster devolution, because I do believe firmly that it is in South Yorkshire's interest for us to control our own future, and that's what devolution offers us the chance to do. I'm also pleased that we've been able to announce we've been successful in a funding bid that we brought before the November MCA board to fund electric vehicle charging points. That is a good news story. The Department for Transport agreed to release nearly £9 million to us this year for projects across the whole of the region, so more charging points for electric vehicles in order to help with the transition to electric vehicles and indeed help with our transition to net zero. So really pleased that that's been the case, and good work from our officers to get us to that point. Our last meeting, the MCA board approved the outlined business case for South Yorkshire Airport City, and Doncaster colleagues continue to lead on the full business case. Obviously, we know this is a complicated endeavour. It's a difficult thing to do. Buying an airport, helping an airport to open is never going to be a quick and easy process, and especially if we're going to do that in the right and proper way. We've seen elsewhere in the country where deals that are done quickly can run into trouble, and so we want to do this absolutely fundamentally properly. So it is important that we take the time to get this right, and I'll bring Glyn in a moment to give us a bit of an update about where we are on DSA. Last Wednesday also saw the Chancellor deliver his budget, of which the devolution deal was a part. The Chancellor re-announced our devolution deal and then the investment zone, as well as the housing funding allocated to Sheffield at the start of the month, which was a very welcome £67 million for the regeneration of Neeps End, and is a really good piece of work. Congratulations to Sheffield Council for all the work they put in to achieving that amount of money. It's a huge amount of money to reinvest in a growing and thriving part of Sheffield. The Chancellor also announced an extension of the Household Support Fund, which not just myself and fellow mayors, alongside other members of the MCA board Campaign to Protect, but I know that Tom and other local leaders were absolutely central to campaigning for that Household Support Fund to be kept, albeit only for another 6 months. That does feel more like a sticking plaster than a long-term cure, as ever with some of the decisions that this government make. Listening to the Chancellor, you wouldn't think that families were struggling quite as much as they were or are across South Yorkshire, or that local government, quite honestly, is on its knees, which I think we all know it is across the whole of this country. Essentially, the government announced they were going to give £8 a week back to people, but that is not going to solve the system-wide problem or let anybody forget what's happened over the last 14 years. The long-term solution, in my view, has to be good growth. It has to be good growth in South Yorkshire, particularly across the north, but across the whole of the country. But that is our plan here in South Yorkshire, good growth that everybody can be part of. Under this government, the economy has experienced the longest decline since records began, and growth per person has now fallen continuously for 2 solid years. That is not okay, and we should not accept that as the future for this country, and certainly not for the future of South Yorkshire. That's why we're going to do things differently here in our region, and grow the economy for everybody to take part in. Finally, last Wednesday's Commons Delegated Legislation Committee considered the order for the police, the transfer of the Police and Crime Commissioner functions to the Office of the Mayor of South Yorkshire, and voted to support it. That means that the order will now be considered by the Lords Committee on the 18th of March, and I hope that the Lords equally support that. If it is to be supported and passed into law, that means today is our final ordinary MCA board meeting before the next South Yorkshire mayoral election. It only feels like yesterday that we had a mayoral election, but it seems we're going to have another one. I look forward to that challenge. I want to take this moment then to thank the members of this board, MCA officers as well, particularly actually, and officers from across our 4 local authorities and all our partners in the region for the work that has gone on over the last 2 years. I do genuinely feel like we're making huge progress, and every one of these meetings seems to come with a big decision that we're taking to move South Yorkshire forward, and that is a testament to the partnership working across South Yorkshire, the work of officers across South Yorkshire, the spirit of progress and ambition across South Yorkshire, and I'm really hopeful that that can continue long into the future. We've got agenda item number 3 here, which is for urgent items, and I think I probably would like to just bring Glyn in, if I can, just to give us a brief update on Doncaster Sheffield Airport, if you would.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, there has been demonstrable progress made on key areas of activity contained within the City of Doncaster's South Yorkshire Airport City programme, known as SIAC. Firstly, Simca at its board meeting on the 13th of February 2024 approved our outline business case with the allocation of the necessary gain share funding of up to £138 million and recommended that we move on into the production of a full business case. We have previously highlighted the current public procurement exercise undertaken to attract an operator for DSA. Our second phase concluded on the 15th of January 2024, where we saw the assessment of a number of parties, which has now been refined further for the final phase. We envisage this will be concluded and publicly announced in late spring of this year. On the lease negotiations, a tremendous amount of effort has gone into trying to secure a lease with the current landowner for a minimum of 125 years. We are extremely hopeful that these negotiations and the City of Doncaster Council's ability to obtain the DSA sites will be concluded shortly. With regard to the investment zone, it's of particular importance to South Yorkshire Airport City programme, as both the DSA development site and Gateway East were submitted as potential sites to benefit from investment zone status. Both these sites are, however, dependent on an operational airport. And finally, we have highlighted previously how imperative it is that the controlled airspace of DSA remains in place. Failing to retain this could potentially harm the SIAC programme by up to 3 years, and we are grateful to the Department of Transport in deferring the Civil Aviation Authority's decision until we have resolved our lease negotiations. Thank you, Oliver.
Thanks, Clint. Agenda item number 4 then. Agenda item 4, items to be considered in the absence of public and press. There are no restricted items on this agenda. We have restricted appendices to items 11 and 12, but the substantive items do remain open. Item number 5 on the agenda are declarations of interest by individual members in relation to any item of business on the agenda, and other than the standing items of interest. Declarations of interest, don't believe there are any. Speak now. No. Wonderful. Agenda item number 6 are reports from and questions by members. We have not received any in advance of the meeting. Agenda item number 7 is receipt of petitions. We have received 3 petitions in advance of the meeting. Those 3 petitions are from Fran Postlewaite, in attendance at the meeting today, to present from Better Buses for South Yorkshire a petition. Fran, would you like to present that petition? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, I'd like to say something. This is about the open letter which I've given some copies to council leaders, just so... Oh, they're coming. Well, to begin really, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I speak on behalf of the Better Buses for South Yorkshire group. It's great that today's agenda includes that massive step forward, moving on in the franchising process to the audit of the business case. And we are very, very happy with the recommendations that the business case is putting forward for that discussion. We are really glad that Oliver has pushed for that to happen. But we did feel about a month ago that we were concerned at the prospect of possible delays as the process goes forward. And that was why we launched what we didn't consider to be a petition. We considered it an open letter to Oliver. But I can understand why it's being treated as a petition here. To let people know that what we did was we launched this open letter on a Friday afternoon, closed it so that we could print off the names on the Monday evening. And in that less than 4 days' time, we had almost 1,100 people sign that open letter, which basically is saying, can we try and make moves to make sure there are no further delays in the franchising process? And the reason for that is obviously because the mayoral election imposes that period of purdah. You already referred to the fact, Oliver, that this is the last meeting until after the election. We are fearful of a situation where the decision to accept the audit and then move to public consultation could be delayed until the summer, unless steps can be taken to make sure that that is accelerated. So we put forward in the letter a couple of possibilities, one of which clearly isn't feasible, because we didn't imagine that this would be discussed here. We thought it would be discussed before the meeting. So the idea of a provisional plans for public consultation as soon as the audit comes through. The other possibility that we put forward is the idea perhaps of a special meeting like was held back in February in order for the public consultation to begin. And really that is the content of it. As I say, our position is that we are, as you know, extremely enthusiastic about the need to move forward to public control as quickly as possible. The next item on the agenda is going to be about a particular community that has been extremely hard hit by the present situation. And we all know, and Oliver is on record as saying this, that the situation is likely to deteriorate. It's not going to get better unless we have a fundamental change in the way things are run. So really, it's to say, is there a chance of the public consultation, which is the key process, isn't it? And the one that we as a campaign feel we can play a massive role in making sure that we deliver support for the plans from the general public. Is that going to be brought forward as quickly and clearly as possible? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Fran. So first of all, let me take the opportunity to thank you and your colleagues from across Better Buses South Yorkshire for all the work you have been doing to try and drum up support for a change to the way in which buses work in South Yorkshire. I know that you are kind of full-throated in your approach to campaigning across the whole of the region, not least singing songs outside our office, so I appreciate that. We're going to be considering bus reform in item 12 on the agenda, so I don't really want to sort of preempt that discussion, because clearly we have to have that discussion here. But should we agree to move to the independent audit stage today, then the audit itself will begin during the pre-election period. And it's important for me to say that work doesn't stop in this building because of the election. Officers carry on working, the audit will carry on at pace in order to kind of get to a decision as quickly as we can. I'm proud that in South Yorkshire we have moved through this process quicker than anyone else in the country. We are doing this urgently because we recognise the urgent need to support buses, to develop public transport, to make public transport work across the whole of our region. But we have to do it properly. And we have to do it properly because we've seen in Manchester what can happen when judicial review holds up a process and it actually ends up taking longer because you're not dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Not that that's what they did in Manchester, but the judicial review, should there be one, would absolutely slow us down. So we have to get the audit absolutely right. We have to make sure that is done absolutely properly, and that's exactly what we intend to do. I also think that it's important to recognise that as an authority, as a mayor, what I don't want to do, what I don't want to be seen to be doing, but what I absolutely don't want to be doing is preempting the decision of a future mayor. And so it's important that before an election we then treat that properly, because there is an election period and people across South Yorkshire have to have their say about what they want for the future. And to take any decision in that pre-election period would first of all seem to preempt that election decision, but would also mean that actually what we were doing was influencing the election result. We got the council elections in 3 of our 4 boroughs, but we also have a mayoral election, so I do not think it is right for us to delegate authority to officers to take such a big decision, should it even come during that period. But I also think that the proper thing to do is to take that as an MCA board as quickly as possible, as we will do, but to do that having reflected on those audit results and looked into them sufficiently, because that is an important part of the process and we have to treat it as such. So we are doing this as quickly as we possibly can, but that doesn't mean not doing it properly. And so thank you for your petition, but we are going to do this in the right way, and that probably means, certainly means that we're not going to take any decisions during that pre-election period. Our second petition comes from the students of King Egbert School. So we don't have anyone in attendance to present this petition, which is for an additional 798 school bus for King Egbert's, but I believe somebody is going to read out the petition.
So the content of the petition, petition for an additional 798 school bus for King Egbert's School says, we are constantly assured that punctuality and attendance are vital to our education, but this is not possible without efficient transport to school. Day after day, there are complaints about buses, with many of us missing out on lesson times because we arrive late, which affects our attendance and therefore education and reports.
Thank you very much. So I think everybody around this table, indeed everybody in this room, recognise that getting students to and from school is absolutely essential to allow them to access their education, on which of course so much of their future depends. And I've personally spoken with the students and head teacher at King Egbert's on a number of occasions now, and I share their concerns about the travel needs of their students, especially those travelling the furthest from the city centre. Those pupils are also more likely to be from lower income households, we know that, so should not be disadvantaged in their ability to access the best possible education, of course, and I think that goes without saying. As we've discussed before at this board though, we face a fundamental challenge with the way bus services in South Yorkshire are funded, or frankly underfunded. We receive less per head of population for bus funding than our counterparts in other regions. When we bid for what's called Bus Back Better funding, bus service improvement plan monies, we received no funding whatsoever. We asked for £434 million and got not a single penny. And even with the subsequent top-ups, we're around £30 less per person. We get about £30 less per person than colleagues and friends in West Yorkshire or the West Midlands. And we have a statutory duty to provide school bus services, and that is why we have stepped in to provide around £5.1 million per year, which is 25% of our total spending, protecting those school services, because we know they are absolutely fundamental. We do need a fair and sustainable multi-year bus financial settlement from government to allow us to protect, improve and grow our network, and without that we're not going to be able to deliver those services that I know people so desperately want. I share that concern of those students at King Egbert's, as I know other people around this table will do. I would love to be able to say I can click my fingers and solve that problem, but without proper funding from government we simply can't do it. And King Egbert's will not be the only school, indeed I know they are not the only school who have that same challenge. There are schools right across our communities who are facing this problem, as there are communities more broadly across South Yorkshire facing this problem of not having a proper public transport system, and that is why we are spending so much time, energy and money on trying to solve that problem for the long term by going through the franchising assessment process at pace and in the way that we are. So we are desperately trying to solve that problem, but we can't solve individual problems right now in the way that I would like, or anybody else around this table would like, without proper funding from government. Finally, on the petitions front, we have a petition from Better Buses for South Yorkshire. Again, I believe we have Ronnie here, who is here. Absolutely good to see you, Ronnie. At the attendance in the meeting today to please present that petition.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting us today. My name's Ronnie Steele. I'm the chair. I live on Broadway, Barnsley. I'm the chair of a campaign group that's trying to get our buses reinstated. The petition is about the fact that bus service 43 and 44, that service was axed back in October, and I don't think people are aware of the effect that it's actually had, that it's severed the lifeline of many people who live on the Broadway estate. Now, the Broadway estates were built originally largely for pensioners, and so the vast majority of people there are pensioners, and now it's gone from 4 buses per hour to no buses per hour. I mean, there's a skeletal service, but it can hardly be described as that. So Old people can't go shopping. They've to walk half a mile or 3/4 of a mile to the nearest bus stop. They can't carry shopping back. They can't get to the hospital. And as you know, when you get into your 60s, 70s, 80s, you need to visit the hospital more often. People feel terribly isolated. And there are some people who live quite a long way away, 3, 4, 5 miles away, at New Lodge and Athersley and Montbretton, who use the doctor's services on our estate, and they can't get there now because there are no buses, and of course they can't afford the taxis. Just three very brief examples. Jeff, 97, who was interviewed on Channel 4 News, said that since October he had been out of the house only twice, and once was his daughter taking him for a haircut, and he's stuck in the house. He's a prisoner in the house. A 90-year-old lady has tried to commit suicide twice since January because she feels so isolated, and I don't know her name because she'll not give it, but she does confide in a neighbour, and I've no doubt she'll succeed unless we get things changed quickly. And another lady, again interviewed on Channel 4 News, said that last week she had to go to the hospital 4 times and it cost her £48, and she's a pensioner. She can't afford it. So basically we're calling in this petition for the reinstatement of the old bus service, but of course it's directed at Stagecoach, but we're going through you because, well, we've tried to present the petition directly to Stagecoach before, and they wouldn't accept it. So that's why we're taking this route. We received an email this morning from Stagecoach saying, "Where the heck is that petition?" Well, I've not replied yet, but I will be replying. So you know, if you can somehow get in touch with them, saying if it is passed, then saying it's on its way. So yeah, finally, could I urge you to accept this petition, and so we can get moving with it? Thank you.
Ronnie, absolutely our pleasure to accept that petition. So thank you very much for the work that you've done, I know, in your community to make this a really effective campaign. I was there at your meeting, I was there at your campaign event at the bus station, and I know you've led a brilliant campaign so far to absolutely draw attention to the challenges that you face. It's frankly heartbreaking, the stories that you tell there, about people in our community who are suffering as a result of bus services not being what they should be. And it just kind of, I think, gives us even more impetus in terms of what we're trying to do across South Yorkshire. So genuinely, thank you for sharing those stories with us. I've met the woman who I know was trying to take her life, and it's a heartbreaking position for anybody to be in when they're so isolated they feel there's no other option, and so we're going to do everything we possibly can. I just wish, frankly, that the Secretary of State for Transport could hear that story, like you've just told it. Because I think people who are making these decisions in government about the way the system works, about the money that we have available in South Yorkshire, but should be made to hear those stories, because that's the effect of the decisions that they make in London, and that's what we have to put up with in our communities, that we are left to fend for ourselves. It also, I think, speaks to the difference that franchising could make, and public control, because frankly what you've done there is come to us as political decision makers, as democratically elected people, because the private sector bus companies won't accept your petition, and I think that speaks to the difference between the two approaches. Following the withdrawal of those commercial services that you've already spoken about by Stagecoach, we have moved to reinstate services, as you know, as best we can, and I made that commitment to you, and that's what we've done. Despite the fact we've got a hugely limited tendered services budget, and we've just heard, haven't we, from King Egberts about what the challenges look like for them, and as I've said, there are these problems across South Yorkshire, but we've moved to support wherever we can. So from Monday the 8th of April, we are going to be funding a tendered 33 service that's going to be operated by South Yorkshire Community Transport, and funding a free community transport service in the meantime, and I'm really pleased we've been able to step in and do that, albeit I recognise we would love to do more, of course. Because not least understanding the sort of consultation we did in February and the meetings that I've been to, the strength of feeling across the community about the need to reinstate in full those 43 and 33 services. So I, of course, will join you on Thursday to hand in your petition to Stagecoach. I believe you are going to go to Stagecoach on Thursday. Have I got that right? Not going anymore?
No, we received a message this morning saying that they couldn't make it.
They
So
couldn't do
we're
it.
going to have to
Okay.
arrange, as a matter of urgency,
Okay.
another meeting.
So I will do my best to join you whenever that meeting is rearranged, and add my weight to your campaign, because absolutely, as I said, I think you're running a great campaign and you deserve to be listened to by Stagecoach, who are making those decisions. So thank you very much for bringing that to the meeting today. Am I right in did you have a separate question that you wanted to ask as well in addition?
My name's Dave Jackson, and like it says on the desk, I'm just a general member of the public. I've joined Ronnie's campaign principally because we moved onto that estate 2 years ago. My wife is disabled quite severely, and the fact that there's a bus stop less than 30 yards from our front door was part of the reason we accepted the bungalow. Quickly realised that there were a bus service of 4 times an hour, which were perfect as far as we're concerned. We both use the buses, or we did use the buses when we had one. My wife finds great difficulty in walking, so we got a little scooter, and we were told by Stagecoach that we needed a pass, so we go and get a pass. We've both been tested, we've got the pass, we've now not got a bus. It's an absolutely ridiculous state of affairs that we've got a bus stop 30 yards away, we get one bus a night at 7 o'clock, it don't come back, it just takes you to town. So you can get there, but you can't get back. No service on a Saturday other than 7 o'clock at night, but strangely they can manage 4 or 5 buses on a Sunday because it's every 2 hours. And with the best will in the world, and I realise it's outside of your authority, Stagecoach is saying, well, we can't get round your estate because it's too small, the buses are too big. They can manage it once a day and they can manage it on a Sunday. Something's not quite right. Is there anything you can do?
As I said, look, I will do everything I can, and I'll be joining that by members around this table to support your campaign, to speak to Stagecoach. We will have already tried this conversation with Stagecoach, and we'll keep on trying that conversation with Stagecoach. I'll join you when you hand in that petition. If you want to give me your personal details, I'm happy to write a letter specifically on your behalf, again, to Stagecoach, to draw attention to the reasons why you moved in, the challenges that you face, and the questions that you raise. Try and get an answer from Stagecoach as to why exactly they can make a bus go around there on a Sunday, but they can't make a bus go around there more frequently in the rest of the week. So we're happy to ask that question on your behalf and see if we can't get an answer for you. So if you want to leave your details with us, we'll make sure that question goes in. I wish I could give you more of an assurance. I wish I could give you a better answer. But as you know, as you've heard already, we're doing everything we can to try and solve that problem, support the campaign, and then over time move to a different system potentially that could change how this thing works across South Yorkshire. So that's what we're doing across the region. But thank you for your question, and thank you for coming today. And just to say, you're not a member of the public, you're a member of the community. You're part of this community, and we'll do everything we can to help. I know it does. We got it wrong. We got it wrong. So yeah, so we'll solve that problem. All right. Thank you very much. On to agenda item number 8, please, which is public questions. I know we've already had one, but we now move on to the substantive public questions, please. We've received a question from Simon Geller, Chair of Friends of the Trans-Pennine Trail, alongside Dexter Johnson of Cycle Sheffield and John Kirkwood of Sustrans. Could you just explain who's here today, please, just to ask the question? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great, right, thank you. I'm just here. I'd like to congratulate MCA on taking control of the Super Tram network. That's excellent news, and we look forward to something similar happening with the buses as well. But I'm specifically here to ask whether, once you've got it under control, you will undertake a trial of carrying bikes on the tram service, which is something that many of us have wanted for a long time. I've put in a detailed document listing some of the benefits of doing that, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think there would be many benefits in terms of personal mobility around Sheffield. From my point of view, as the chair of the Friends of the Trans-Pennine Trail, we would like our trail users to be able to get out to the trail easily. We've got points at Halfway, Meadow Hall, even Middlewood, where the trail can be accessed relatively easily, so that's our personal motivation. But our other groups, like Cycle Sheffield, would be very keen on this. Sustrans also, very willing to push this and very willing to work with you on a trial to work out the details. We know that there are concerns about maintaining access for disabled people and other users. We feel all those concerns could be addressed in the context of a trial. You may know that Manchester Metrolink are currently conducting a trial. Other light rail systems around the UK and elsewhere in the world do carry bikes, Edinburgh trams. Cardiff, the Transport for Wales, are introducing tram trains, and they carry bikes. So I think there's lots of precedent, lots of things we can learn from other areas on this. So that's my question.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the work you do on the Trans-Pennine Trail, because we're all big fans of the Trans-Pennine Trail, so greatly appreciate the work that you do there. As you know, operational control of Supertram comes back from Stagecoach to a company wholly owned by us, the MCA, and therefore South Yorkshire, next Friday. And that change in ownership forms part of our wider ambitions to create an integrated public transport network across the whole of South Yorkshire. I've said to the team already, and I think we're kind of all of one mind, that we want our policy review to include looking at the case for cycles on Supertram. But I do know that the solution isn't straightforward, and I've had other representations from other groups, not least disability groups, that we need to maintain and ensure appropriate access for passengers with mobility challenges in particular, and I'm mindful of trying to strike a balance between those two, as I'm sure you would be as well. So we're keen to work with our community at large to develop the enhancements to Supertram once it comes back under that public control, that reflects the needs, the wants, the desires of our whole community. So we're undertaking customer research from the 22nd of March. So from day one, we will be asking people what they want from the Supertram network. So that's going to be a paper and an online survey which will run for a month. So I would encourage you to please encourage your members and take part yourself. But improved bike facilities and the ability for customers to board trams with their bikes is going to be one of those options on that survey. So hopefully we'll get a substantive response from the community that say they support that pilot, that change. I think it should be a pilot in the first instance because of the reasons that I think I've already explained. But what is important for us is to prioritise the improvements to the network that deliver the greatest value, and for the majority, whilst being mindful of obviously budget and network safety. Basically, we want to make sure that the Supertram network is providing the most value, the most access to as many people as possible, and is most usable for everybody who wants to kind of get on the tram in order to get out and about across the region. I can't believe it is beyond us to provide a solution to this problem over time. So stick with us, bear with us. I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight by any stretch of the imagination, but understand that we are kind of looking into the solutions and we'll do our very best. All right. Thank you very much. We've also received a question from Joyce Green. Joyce isn't in attendance, but I believe we're going to have her question read out, please.
Yep, so Joyce's question is, item 20, appendix 2, shows the budget for the MCA. Of the 2.3 million given to the Sheaf Valley route, only 0.3 million of the money spent are stated. A further 0.79 spend is predicted, totalling 1.09 million. The forecast completion date is listed as December 23. Shoreham Street has not been upgraded, making that date incorrect. My questions are as follows. Why is there an underspend predicted? Are there any further works forecast on Shoreham Street? Keeping in mind this project was announced in 2020, what are the reasons for the delays? The Sheaf Valley extension, East Bank Road, now shows as to be confirmed. Has this been held up by Shoreham Street? If not, what are the reasons? Do the Mayor and leaders of Sheffield City Council agree with the statement that delivering a safe cycle route along Shoreham Street is a vital part of the vision to enable active travel from South and South East Sheffield?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I'm conscious, obviously, Tom Hunt is here, leader of Sheffield Council. I think we're of one mind. There isn't an underspend on this scheme. The remaining monies are still allocated to the scheme, but are not currently showing on the sheet as the project is undergoing change control. One of the key objectives for our active travel strategy across the whole of South Yorkshire, and it is an ambitious strategy, is to give people greater choice and freedom to walk, to wheel, to cycle for everyday journeys. We know that ensuring there is safe, comfortable walking routes for cycling as well as walking and wheeling gives people the confidence to travel more actively. We know, obviously, given the recent public question, the previous public question, we also want to kind of make sure that the whole network is integrated to give people more choice, like I say, and freedom, and improve their own health, and easing congestion in and out of not just the city centre of Sheffield, but across South Yorkshire. So I share Sheffield Council's commitment to progressing the whole of that Connecting Sheffield programme and delivering the next phase of the scheme to continue to see the benefits of providing that new infrastructure to encourage and enable more people to have that choice and freedom. So I hope that answers the question. Agenda item number 9. We move on to minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of February 2024. Are members content that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Yeah. And therefore we're on to item number 10, which is plan for growth. That is going to be presented by Tom. I think this is a brilliant bit of work. So Tom, I'm going to hand straight over to you if I could, please.
Thanks, Oliver. Thanks, Oliver. So the gap between South Yorkshire's productivity levels and those of the national average is about 5.9 billion, nearly 20%. And what we've presented in the paper today is a plan for how we can begin to close that gap. The final document will be published on Thursday, but the paper gives you all of the content that document will contain. And it has 3 key elements. So the first is it recognises that growth will not happen everywhere all at once. It requires focus. And the plan sets out 4 places, our growth areas, as we're calling them, where the region will focus policy, resources and land to deliver a pipeline of projects that will deliver region-wide economic gains. And this is primarily around creating more high-paid, secure jobs in the region. Those 4 areas are Sheffield City Centre and the research spine, South Yorkshire Airport City, as we've heard about already today, but that being dependent on there being an operational airport in place, the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District between Rotherham and Sheffield, and Barnsley Town Centre. And as well as focusing on those 4 areas, we will also, the plan sets out a process of engagement on the underlying economic and social priorities for investment over the next decade around housing, transport, energy, the environment, a key cross-cutting theme, culture and digital infrastructure, as well as skills, healthy life expectancy, early years, community safety, and different forms of ownership and the social enterprise sector. So that's what the plan does, and as I said, will be published on Thursday.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom. I know there's been a huge amount of work. I know you've sought insight and help from world-leading experts, not least through our Mayoral Economic Advisory Council, who've inputted into that plan, our Business Advisory Board, who've also kind of had a say. So really grateful to all the work that's gone into it to get it to this point. Are there any comments or questions from members around the table?
Yeah, can do. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. I think it's a really good piece of work. I think the message being sent from this piece of work loud and clear that South Yorkshire is going for growth is exactly the right one, and we heard that really clearly at the launch of the UK Reef event last week, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that in May in Leeds. I think this sets out a really clear framework for the whole of the region. There will be individual growth plans for each of our local authorities. We're working on ours right now, and it will complement this, and we'll be emphasising different things slightly differently, but rock solid standing behind this. And that commitment to the city centre, the research spine, the innovation district in Sheffield is very welcome. We'll be emphasising green growth very clearly in our growth plan, but it will complement this, and this shows that the 4 areas of South Yorkshire are working together with the MCA to have a really consistent plan for growth. So it's a good step forward.
Thanks, Tom. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay, in which case the recommendations are that the board approve the draft content of the plan for growth, delegate authority to the corporate director in consultation with the mayor and head of paid service to sign off the final plan for growth detail and design, and agree to publish the working document in March. Everybody content? Wonderful, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tom. In which case, on to item number 11, which is skills strategy in AEB, priorities, flexibilities, and allocations, which is going to be introduced by Fliss. But Steve, did you want to say anything about this before?
Okay, just to say, this is South Yorkshire's first employment skills strategy. It's based on the notion of how we support residents to live resilient and productive lives. There are 3 key missions within this. One is to grow the workforce. Secondly, to improve the basic skills of the workforce, indeed the population more generally. And thirdly, to create people with higher level skills so we can fill those jobs for the future, and those jobs Tom was talking about as part of the growth strategy. There are a number of priorities within there and activities within there which I'll not go through here today, but it is a comprehensive approach to growing the skills base for South Yorkshire, and unless we do that, we won't get the growth we want in terms of those extra businesses and high quality businesses and jobs that we're looking for. The second part of the report covers the AEB allocations, flexibilities and priorities for the coming year. People will be aware that the MCA has £50 million in terms of the devolved skills budget, £40 million of which is for the adult education budget, which is given principally to local authorities, colleges and other providers. So this sets out approval for allocations for the next financial year, the new priorities which will be aligned to the skills strategy that hopefully we're approving today, and some additional flexibilities around how we use AEB to make sure we're getting the best use out of that and the best impact out of that moving forward. So I hope that gives shortly an overview of where we are, what we're trying to achieve. Thanks, Oliver.
Great, thank you. Fliss, is there anything else you wanted to add to the summary?
Perhaps just a couple of additional points, if that's okay. So one is that the strategy, like with the plan for growth, will also be published on Thursday. So we see that those documents is working very closely together for the region. And I also just wanted to extend a huge thank you to Sir Steve, to Kate, and also to all of our constituent authorities and wider partners in the development of a skills strategy. It really has been a team effort in getting the document to where it is, and looking forward to developing the implementation plan, which will hopefully be developed by autumn to make this a reality. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, for what it's worth, I think again it's a brilliant example of the work that we're doing now across South Yorkshire, the way in which we're working and progressing and tackling big challenges. So I'm really pleased that we're in that space, and this is a really good thing to say. So I'm looking forward to launching it on Thursday. Any comments or questions on the paper? Any comments? Anyone else? No? Okay. All right, in which case, can I ask that the board approve draft content of the skills strategy, delegate authority to the corporate director and section 73 officer in consultation with the portfolio lead for education, training and skills to sign off the final skills strategy content and design, approve the AEB priorities for 2024 and 25, approve the use of additional AEB funding policy changes and flexibilities, approve indicative allocations for AEB grants of £31.8 million and free courses for jobs, grant £1.28 million funding, AEB procurement, which is £10 million, and FG free courses for jobs procured, £2.2 million provision for 2024-25, and AEB Innovation Fund, which is £2 million. Delegate authority to the Section 73 officer in consultation with the portfolio lead for education, training and skills to approve 2024-25 proposals for specific learning organisations as set out in Appendix A, and delegate authority to the head of paid service in consultation with the Section 73 and monitoring officer to negotiate the terms and approve entering into legal agreements for the schemes above. Are we all content? I always come out of these meetings feeling much more sympathetic towards newsreaders, I have to say. Right, okay, on to item number 12, please, which is the South Yorkshire bus reform paper, which I know is the big audience pleaser in the agenda. This paper sets out the outcomes of the South Yorkshire franchising assessment and seeks a decision on whether to progress the proposed franchising scheme to independent audit. So be under no doubt this is a big moment in the franchising assessment process. I'm really pleased we've been able to get here. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, we are moving faster through this process than anyone else in the country, and that's down to the hard work and tenacity of officers as well as the support of campaigners and the leadership in this room. So I'm really grateful to everybody who's got us to this point. Menally, can I bring you in, please, to introduce the paper?
Yes, thank you, Oliver. So we have completed the franchising assessment, and this is the first stage that is set out in the legislation in terms of bus reform. So we do want to look at the options for franchising, and we compare that with the current position that we have, which is an enhanced partnership with bus operators. And I think it's fair to say that over the past decade, bus mileage has significantly declined by approximately 42%. And then in the last 10 years, the 13% of the bus network mileage was supported by public sector funding. And by this current financial year, this has grown to 20%, and next year we're forecasting that public funding will support 24% of the network. So we're looking at options for how we can change and improve the bus network. So we've got an option where we could look at an enhanced partnership plus, where we currently have this arrangement, enhanced partnership with the operators, and we could look at deepening that further and looking at what options that would bring. And we've also looked at a number of bus franchising options. Now, we've looked at a number of areas. We've got 5 business cases that we've reviewed, and we've got a number of questions and objectives that we were trying to address with that franchise. So we've looked at strategic case, economic, commercial, management and financial case of those areas. And then we've got various objectives that were set out in section 1.3 around themes such as affordability, value for money, connectivity, passenger demand, punctuality. And we were comparing what we have now with the enhanced partnership, what we could have with a deepened partnership, and then the various options for franchising. And the assessment has concluded that we would get a preferred option for our network with the franchised options, and actually option B is the one where we would, as an MCA, buy both the depots and the fleet in our particular area, which would require some upfront investment in terms of being able to do that, but it would mean good competition in terms of letting the routes for franchising, but it would also allow new entrants to come into the market as well, by being able to provide both depots and fleet. So in terms of the legislation, the next step is to do an independent audit of that franchising assessment. So the franchising assessment makes a case for change. The independent audit will then look at, have we followed the legislation as set out? Are the assumptions that we have made sound? Does it provide good value for money? And does it actually provide, at least 2 options for us to look at as we move further down the line? So the proposal here is that we continue with the bus reform process. We undertake the independent audit, and again it's set out in terms of how we might do that, and typically it would take between 8 and 12 weeks to complete the audit, looking at where other MCAs have already gone down this route, and then we would come back here to the MCA board to make a decision as to whether we then continue with that process and continue into public consultation. So we're recommending that the preferred option is the option B, that looks at the franchising option, owning the depots and the fleet, and that we continue with an independent audit of that assessment.
Brilliant, thank you, Melanie. I was going to make a joke, but actually, in the context of what Ronnie said earlier, I just don't think it's very funny, is it? Because actually what we heard earlier was the devastating effect that poor bus services have across our communities and what it's doing to people's lives. And so this paper couldn't be more important in my view. I know it's the product of kind of years of hard work from officers, MCA board members, people right across South Yorkshire, and we are now down to essentially 2 options, enhanced partnership plus and franchising. And if we do agree today, and I hope we do, we will next move to that independent, audit stage, and then it will fall on us to, as an MCA board after the elections, and hopefully I'm still here, to consider the report of the full audit. But this is a big and important moment because it shows our commitment to the process and getting through it as swiftly as we possibly can. And I think campaigners have just heard that the likely timetable is about 3 months, so that gives you some indication of how long that will take, which is why I think the PERDA period is not the appropriate time going to be the appropriate time to take that decision anyway. But we will take that decision as swiftly as we can, and we'll work across South Yorkshire to make sure that we are taking the right decision and doing this in the right way. But thank you for the work that's gone into it. Can I ask if there are any other questions or comments from members of board. I know we've had multiple conversations behind closed doors about this, just for the record. But is anybody who wants to say anything now publicly? Tom?
I just think this is a big step forward for all of us. You know, as you say, we've been talking about this here for a long time. We've been talking in our communities for an even longer time. You know, every time I'm out knocking on doors, people tell me the top issue for them is that their buses are just not good enough. And we are today on the path to taking action about this and improving buses in our region. So it's a big step forward. There's a lot more work to do, and I add my thanks to the colleagues here who've done a lot of work to get us to this point. But we, as Oliver has said, are moving faster than other regions, and I will continue to keep up the pace because our communities expect us to.
Any other comments, questions? No. In which case, can I please ask that the board note the outcome of the assessment of the proposed franchising scheme, subject to recommendation 3 below, approve the progression of the proposed franchising scheme to independent audit in accordance with section 123D of the Transport Act 2000, delegate authority to the head of paid services in consultation with the section 73 officer and monitoring officer to approve final amendments to the franchising assessment and the proposed franchising scheme prior to progression to independent audit, provided that such financial amendments do not materially impact the outcome of the franchising assessment. The franchising assessment and the proposed franchising scheme are set out at appendices A and B to this report. Approve entering into contract with an independent auditor to undertake the statutorily required audit under section 123D of the Transport Act 2000 and receive a further report following the completion of the independent audit. Are we all agreed? Agreed. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Perfect. That's good news. In which case, on to more good news. Agenda item number 13, which is the project Beds for Babies, our Safe Place to Sleep programme. I'm going to ask Andy Gates to introduce this piece of work, which I'm personally incredibly proud of and incredibly grateful for the work that's gone on. I think this is a brilliant project, really, really brilliant. And I was really pleased to be able to be part of an event this morning where I saw what that means to so many families across South Yorkshire, the impact I know it's going to have because of the challenges that we face, not just in South Yorkshire but across the country, but the challenges that we're going to be able to address here in our region because of the hard work that's gone into this. And with the support of, and it's important to put on record, I think the support that we've had, not just from our local authority partners, from private sector partners like IKEA, from Sheffield Hallam University, from NHS colleagues, but actually from Harvard University, from Bloomberg Philanthropies, from the City Leadership Initiative, who have been brilliant in supporting us, bringing us together and helping us work through the challenge and the problems in order to get us to this point. And this cannot be the end of that journey. This has to be just the beginning, but I'll let Andy introduce the paper and explain in more detail what we were doing.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to have my name on this report. As the Chair, Oliver, has set out, the proposal in front of the board is to invest £2.2 million in a series of interventions to tackle a particular issue in South Yorkshire and a national issue as well. That £2.2 million is split across 3 particular areas. One is meeting a demand in the here and now for beds, cots, Moses baskets, cribs and sort of ancillary equipment to meet the challenges that we face in communities right now. The second tranche of the funding is to do some proper test and learn pilots in 4 parts of South Yorkshire, 1 in each of our local authority areas, to unpick the real causes of these problems rather than just invest in some of the sticking plaster here and now issues. And the third part of it is to conduct a in-depth evaluation which should, we hope, give us that evidence base that we probably all know instinctively that investment upstream tackles some of the challenges for the downstream and to enable us to make investment case for the future to unlock resources into this type of early prevention intervention. So, yeah, delighted to take any questions on the report.
Brilliant. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, thank you.
I thought I'd better speak, otherwise it'd just be an afternoon of silence. But what I wanted to say was how much we appreciated this particular paper and the project. And we in Rotherham have just approved a significant budget item to provide baby packs for every child that's born in the borough. So of course we're keen to make sure that we get as much as we can out of the connectivity between this project and ours, particularly in the Swinton project area. So very much welcoming this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe I'm coming out to Rotherham tomorrow to see Chris in order to be able to kind of celebrate some of the work that you're already doing. And I know that is a really important project for Rotherham. The baby packs have been a brilliant initiative, and I've been really pleased to see the work that you're doing, but across South Yorkshire. Now, guaranteeing a bed for every under 5 across the whole of South Yorkshire is a massive commitment, and I think a massive step forward in helping the most vulnerable people in our region is what we're here to do. So, yeah, really, really proud of this one. Unless there are any other comments or questions? No. I would therefore ask that the board approves the investment of £2.2 million of MCA funds into a safe space to sleep programme that A, tackles unmet and growing demand for cots, cot beds, toddler beds and Moses baskets for children aged 0 to 5 right across South Yorkshire. B, enables the region to test and learn, delivers 4 test and learn pilots focused around delivering a safe space in Goldthorpe, Mexborough, Swinton and Gleadless to build a detailed evidence base of what works to deliver trust, stronger working relationships between statutory and non-statutory services, community and partner-led project design at a community level. C, supports an evaluation programme to build an investment case for shifting mainstream resources into prevention, social and community infrastructure capital. The intention of the MCA and partners to align with existing services and to work through delivery partners from within the voluntary and community sector in South Yorkshire, and a delegation to the Head of Paid Service, Section 151 officer and monitoring officer in consultation with the South Yorkshire Mayor to put in place the required legal agreements with both the delivery partners and the project evaluators. Are we all agreed? Yes, wonderful. That is a brilliant thing to do. Thank you very much. In which case, on to item number 14, please, which is UKSPF delivery update, and I believe that paper will be led by Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor. We brought this paper really to highlight the performance on South Yorkshire's UK Shared Prosperity Fund programme, and really to commend the performance of partners and colleagues from across the region. So the board will remember that the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is the successor funding to European monies, and in this region we've used the funding that's available to us to support 3 pillars of activity. That's communities in place, supporting local businesses and people and skills. So we're now into the second of the 3-year programme, and we're making some really good progress and funding some really good activity. And the appendices show some case studies of where we're making a really meaningful impact with our funding. This includes investment into the Goldthorpe Market project, Skills and Employability South Yorkshire, which is a Sheffield City Council run scheme on behalf of the region, and work with the Citizens Advice Bureau in Doncaster and Voluntary Action Rotherham to support cost of living activity. So this investment is really important to us. It really supports the social fabric of the region, supports our engagement with businesses, and is really making a difference in the region. We're very well set heading into the final year of the programme, and our performance should mean that we are able to draw down the full allocation to us. And we're hopeful that government will see a way to find funding to continue this activity into the new year. So I'm happy to take any questions at that point.
Any comments or questions from Gareth?
Yeah, just to say this money has been extremely well received and well used to a point where demand is exceeding supply, and the amount of funding we're getting through this is well below what we would have received through the funding from the European Union. So we're losing out, and we're likely to lose out even more if the programme doesn't continue beyond its current timetable. So we need to lobby heavily into government to make sure that it does continue, and preferably, notwithstanding everything that's been said about the government's finances at the moment, and preferably extended in terms of the volume of it, because if we are ambitious for our growth strategy, and this is being targeted very much at businesses that are looking to grow, particularly in the creative and digital sector, if we are looking to expand and deliver our skills strategy, a lot of this money again is going into employment and skills, bringing people into work, then we are going to need this money going forward, or it is going to be a significant hole in our attempts to grow the sub-region.
Thank you. I mean, I agree with everything you said. Certainly the EU funding point, I think, is a very well-made one. My understanding is we'd be back in Objective 1 status if we were in the European Union, which would have not just meant we got the money we did, we would have got an uplift in that amount of money. And obviously Objective 1 funding was hugely important in a lot of the development that happened over the last number of years. And my understanding is, and I'm happy to be corrected, but my understanding is that there are now question marks over SPF going forward as a result of the budget the other day. So I do think those questions should be answered by the government, because they're the ones that committed to providing a transfer of kind of the European funding and make sure that we didn't lose out, and that doesn't seem to be the case as far as I can tell. Are there any other comments or questions about this paper? Yeah, Tom.
Thank you. I think it's just to pick up that point around the questions for government. I don't think we can expect that we will get those answers from government. I think it's incumbent on us, once we get past the election here, to really put pressure to force those questions to be answered. And we've seen with Household Support Fund that this was something that was going to end, and it's only because of pressure from political leaders and from communities and charities that was extended. I think we're going to need to really step up our collective efforts over the next year to ensure that we have certainty for our communities and for our staff who are supported through UKSPF.
Any other comments or questions? No. In which case, can I ask that the board please note the progress update on delivery and the approach to securing 24-25 funding, prioritise submitting the remaining 23-24 UKSPF funding claims to MCA as quickly as possible. Are we all agreed? Yes. Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you very much. In which case, on to item number 15, which is the Local Visitor Economy Partnership and South Yorkshire Destination Management Plan. And again, this paper is from Andy Gates, please.
Good afternoon again. In 2023, members may remember that the MCA board agreed to establish a local visitor economy partnership, brought together the 4 functions across South Yorkshire, which we did, and that was formally accredited by DCMS Visit England in 2023, with Sheffield City Council as the lead accountable body. To take that work forward, we needed to establish a plan called a Destination Management Plan, and we needed to establish some governance to underpin that plan. This paper brings forward those 2 elements, setting out a summary of the Destination Management Plan that's been prepared in consultation with visitor economy partners, stakeholders and businesses right across South Yorkshire, and then a proposal around establishing an LVEP advisory forum to inform the portfolio lead for culture and creative and digital, to which this LVEP work sits under. So in short, the DMP responds to some of the opportunities in South Yorkshire for our visitor economy, which is worth about was worth about £1 billion to South Yorkshire in 2019, pre-COVID, but also seeks to respond to some of the challenges we have on our visitor economy, and the 5 action areas set out in the paper are fleshed out in the accompanying report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the paper? No? Okay, all right, thank you, Andy. In which case, can I ask that the board approve the South Yorkshire Destination Management Plan, which is Appendix A, approve the establishment of a local visitor economy partnership forum to support the MCA Culture, Creative and Digital Portfolio Lead, Tom Hunt. Are we all agreed? Brilliant, thank you. On to item number 16 then, please, which is Culture, Creative and Heritage Investment Update. And again, that is led by Andy Gates. Tom, is there anything you wanted to add before that point? No? Brilliant, thank you. Okay, thank you. Andy, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that the previous paper said we should do is invest in our cultural, creative and heritage offer to improve our visitor economy offer. And what this paper seeks to do is just to showcase that we are indeed doing that right across South Yorkshire. In the programme approvals paper later, you'll be asked to approve 3 schemes totaling around £8 million into Harmony Works, which is a superb scheme in the centre of Sheffield, which is going to bring music education back into the heart of the city. Regen scheme. These aren't all schemes that are physically located within 100 metres of this office, but Castlegate is a significant regeneration scheme for the city and South Yorkshire. And then in Rotherham, the Children's Capital of Culture, this is a MCA investment into a much wider investment from Rotherham Council into a youth-focused children's capital of culture starting in 2025, but which has already is very much motoring. So really pleased to sort of bring this paper forward. It reflects the fact perhaps there is a narrative that South Yorkshire and our places don't invest enough in culture, creative and heritage. This paper and the investments that are going to keep coming forward through the MCA very much demonstrate that that is not the case. Tom, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you. I entirely endorse the final point there. This is a real statement of intent about the level of investment that we're making in cultural, creative and heritage projects, and I think we should see this as a starting point or a continuation of a journey that we're on, and there is many more points along the way to go before we get there. The three teams that we're putting on today that we're funding are really ambitious, and I welcome them entirely. You would expect me to say the two that are located very near to this building are fantastic, and this whole area around Castlegate is going to transform over the next couple of years, and this funding will help us to do that. But certainly the Children's Capital of Culture work is again really important. I'm looking forward to seeing that as well in the way that I'm sure that it will. So this is a big step forward, and I welcome it entirely.
Thank you. In the Destination Management Plan paper, the previous paper, we said how we're going to grow our visitor economy, and that economy is worth £1 billion already to South Yorkshire's economy, but the investments we're making here, I think, are how we put our money where our mouth is and show that our deeds are matching our words. So I'm particularly pleased personally to be able to support the Rotherham Children's Capital of Culture, which is a hugely ambitious and exciting programme, not least down to the brilliant work of Councillor Chris Reed and his team who've made that happen. So that's huge congratulations to you guys. I think that's a brilliant piece of work. Okay, in which case, can I ask that the board note the investments being made in culture, creative and heritage schemes across South Yorkshire, specifically Children's Capital of Culture, which is a £0.96 million grant, Harmony Works schemes of up to £2 million in grants, and the Castle Project scheme up to £5 million in grant. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Brilliant. Thank you very much. In which case, move on to Tram transfer update, item number 17 on the paper. Melanie, is that going to be introduced by you, please? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Oliver. So as you said at the beginning of the meeting, the tram concession with South Yorkshire Super Tram Limited expires on the 21st of March, and with effect from the 22nd of March, the Super Tram system will be operated by South Yorkshire Future Trams Limited, and this is a wholly owned subsidiary company of the MCA. And bringing the tram back into public control is part of a longer term plan for an integrated, safe, connected and affordable transport system in South Yorkshire. So the tram system is now around 30 years old, and it's going to take long-term investment to actually turn that around in terms of what's needed on the network. And just in terms of the issues, the focus has been on planning for that transition, and thanks to Pat and her team for leading on that transition work. The priority has been to achieve a safe and seamless transition from the current tram operator for both customers and for employees, and the work has focused on the transfer and recruitment of staff, development of customer facing systems such as new ticket machines, back office systems, new supplier contracts, the development of a new safety management system, and agreement of an operating licence with the regulator. The business plan has previously been here to the MCA board, but just in terms of how tram links in with the rest of our transport areas. So in the longer term, a renewed tram system will enable expansion of tram and the tram train network in South Yorkshire. We're also working with government to restore railways. We've obviously talked about looking at bus reform and linking with active travel as well. So it's very much part of an integrated transport system, and it will be an integral part of our local transport plan. And also we've got in the transport space the bus service improvement plan as well. So quite a lot that's happening at the moment. And then obviously this transfer is imminent next week.
Thank you, Melanie. From my perspective, bringing the tram back into public control, which I know is a big decision, not an easy decision, is a down payment on our ambitions for that integrated public transport network. and renewed public transport network across South Yorkshire. And none of this is quick and none of this is easy, and I say this consciously in front of campaigners in the room from the bus campaign. We want to move as quickly as we can, but we have to do things in the right way. But where we can move, we are moving. And I think this is a down payment, like I say, on our future ambitions. That doesn't mean this is easy. This is a big step. Our first ambition on day one is to make sure that the system works and works properly for those people who need to use it in order to get into work, to see friends and family, to be able to do what they need to do. We need to operate it clearly, safely and properly, but over time to have a bigger and wider ambition for the tram network as well. Successful regions have mass transit networks that allow us to connect up people, and they also have effective public transport networks, and they also have thriving regional airports, and we hope we can have all of those over time. So if everybody is okay, can I just ask that please the board note with that, unless anybody else wants to come in. Sorry, I should have asked that question. No. Note that with the effect from the 22nd of March 2024, the Supertram system will be operated by Siftel, a wholly owned subsidiary company of the MCA. Everybody agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, in which case on to item number 18, please, which is the assurance framework, and I believe Lindsay Whittaker is here to talk us through the paper.
Yes, thank you and good afternoon everyone. The assurance framework is a document which explains how the MCA is structured. It explains how decisions are made, also the funding that is awarded and devolved to the MCA, and it also describes the process by which investment propositions are appraised for value for money and also the return on investment to the taxpayer. We review and redraft the assurance framework on an annual basis to identify any changes and improvements that need to be made to it. Following those changes, the assurance framework is then presented to 3 government departments for sign-off. The sign-off by government actually triggers the release of the investment funds, otherwise known as gain share. We concluded the annual review of the assurance process and the assurance framework just before Christmas. We have now redrafted the assurance framework, which is presented to you at Appendix A in the paper, and that concludes all of the comments and the feedback and the suggestions for improvement from local authority officers and also staff here. The key amendments are actually detailed in the covering paper at section 2.1. We're also presenting the assurance framework to the Audit Standards and Risk Committee on the 20th of March, but we're here to present the draft to you today to seek any final comments that we need to make prior to submission to government, and also to seek your endorsement. Thank you.
Okay, any comments or questions, please? No? In which case, can I ask that the board please note the proposed amendments to the assurance framework to ensure that compliance with the government's requirements and most recent issued guidance. Consider any further changes they wish to evaluate for governance, funding approvals or decision-making arrangements from the 1st of April 2024. Agree the draft assurance framework in Appendix A for onward publication and submission to government. We all agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, on to item number 18, please, which is the MCA Constitution paper from Steve Vanport. This report seeks approval to amend the MCA's Constitution to implement the transfer of the PCC, the Police and Crime Commissioner functions, to the Office of the Mayor, and indeed the Mayor, with effect from the 7th of May 2024. So Steve, could you lead us through the paper, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. Not much else to say apart from what the Mayor's already said. It's a technical paper that requires, we require to amend the Constitution to absorb the functions of the PCC into the Mayor's mayoral authority. So the paper just sets out those requirements and delegates authority to me to make those amendments. I'll bring a final version back to the June meeting if everyone's okay with that. So any questions from members?
Thank you. It's probably worth just me saying in response to this paper, given over the opportunity, and in light of some of the comments that have recently been made in Parliament by some of our Conservative colleagues from this region, who took the opportunity to say that this was not the right thing for South Yorkshire, despite all of them having voted for this to happen in South Yorkshire when it came through Parliament, that I do think this is the right move forward for South Yorkshire indeed. When I was elected, I put it in my manifesto that we would proceed with this change. Clearly the Tories, the government, proceeded through their manifesto and levelling up processes to put this in place as well. But in my manifesto I said I would pursue this change. I succeeded in getting 71% of the vote and a majority of 80,000. And so the Conservative members in the region who have spoken out against the change, I think personally should maybe reflect on what our communities actually want and what is best for our communities, and I think this is the right move forward for all of us. Are there any other comments or questions on this paper? No? Okay, in which case we are all agreed that the MCA authorise the monitoring officer to make all amendments required to the Constitution to accommodate the transfer of PCC functions to the Mayor, with effect from the 7th of May 24, bringing a final version of the Constitution showing the amendments made to the MCA board in June for a final endorsement. Take it all agreed. Brilliant, thank you very much. In which case on to item number 20, which is the annual budget and treasury management paper from Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really pleased to present a balanced budget to the board. This follows on from the report that the board received in January, where the leaders agreed to increase the transport levy for the second year in a row. We're incredibly grateful for the support from leaders in the room and colleagues across the region for that increase, and we recognise the difficulties in managing that with pressures on local authority budgets. The budget in the paper today reflects a significant amount of funding, £387 million worth of resource to deliver capital and revenue programmes of activity, along with our core resource. It includes funding for many of the things that we talked about today, including the Better Beds project, the heritage and culture schemes, and also a significant amount of resources set aside to support the franchising activity should the board decide to proceed with that in the new financial year. The report includes an accompanying treasury management strategy that sets out how we will manage our cash and our debt portfolios, and also includes a Section 25 statement where I outlined some of the key risks that will be present in our operating environment into the new year and beyond. So I'm happy to take any questions at that point now.
Thank you, Gareth. Worth me saying, I think I'm really proud to be able to put this forward. We've got a balanced budget, but more importantly, we're doing some big and important things. The Beds for Baby scheme, which will guarantee a bed for every child under 5 across South Yorkshire, bus franchising, which will move our region forward, grow our economy and connect with our communities, and everything else besides. So it's, I think, a testament to the work that's been done by everybody that we've been able to get to this point, and that is reflected in this budget. Are there any other comments or questions? No? In which case, can I ask that the board approve the adoption of the revenue and capital budget estimates for the year, approve the reserve strategy, approve the treasury management strategy, and delegate authority to the Section 73 officer to accept a number of grant awards. All agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. In which case, on to item number 21, which is programme approvals. And again, this paper is from Gareth, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm really pleased to present a set of investment proposals to the board today. This includes the Northbridge Connector scheme in Doncaster, 2 housing schemes in Rotherham at Waverley, and also support for the Children's Capital of Culture scheme in Rotherham that we really like. In Sheffield, we've got funding allocated to the South West bus corridors that we are really happy to commend to the board, along with 2 brownfield housing schemes and 2 gain share funded schemes at Harmony Works that was mentioned earlier, and also for the Castle project just around the corner from here. There's a recommendation that the board also approve the acceptance of a number of grants that will allow us to continue with investment activity. So really pleased to commend these projects to the board.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on any of the paper? You happy? Okay, brilliant. All right, everyone buckle up. Can I ask that the board please progresses the following schemes and releases funding as requested in the report, subject to the conditions in the attached assurance summaries. A. Northbridge Connector, City of Doncaster Council. B. South West Bus Corridor, Sheffield City Council. C. Rotherham Children's Capital of Culture, Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council. D. Laurel Works Built to Rent, BTR scheme. E. Harmony Works. F. The Castle Project. G. Waverley Net Zero Carbon Pilot, Parcel 4C. H. The Hive scheme. That the board delegate authority to the head of paid service in consultation with Mayor Ros Jones in a position as the portfolio lead for housing and infrastructure for consideration of the following scheme, Waverley 4D, approve the change request as detailed in 1.12, acceptance of any subsequent grant award following the submission of a proposal for the Digital Futures Accelerator Fund to the Careers and Enterprise Company, acceptance of any subsequent grant award following the submission of a proposal for the Active Travel England e-Cycle Pilot Fund, acceptance of the £0.10 million grant from the South Yorkshire Local Resilience Forum, delegate authority to head of paid service in consultation with Section 73 and monitoring officer to enter into legal agreements for the schemes above. Are we all agreed? Don't ask me to read it again, please. Thank you very much. All agreed? Yes, good. Thank you very much. On to item number 22 in that case, please, which is delegated authority report from Chief Executive Martin Spells.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the normal, very short report which outlines
decisions made under the Office of Delegation and MCA Delegation scheme up to the 7th of February. Thank you, Mayor. 24.
Any comments or questions? No. In which case, can I ask that the board note the decision the delegations made? All agreed? Is there any other business? Because we haven't had enough. No? All right, brilliant. Everybody, thank you very much. And I very much hope to be able to see you at the next MCA board meeting in June, even if just as a spectator, but hopefully, hopefully as the mayor. Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much. See you soon.